Welcome everyone to What's Happening in Crypto, exploring all of the latest from the crypto world and beyond. Bitcoin mining, are we in big trouble? We've seen the network hash rate going down, we have seen difficulty going down, and we have some big announcements from some of the largest players in the Bitcoin mining industry this week that have caused a lot of concern. We're going to be breaking down what these announcements are and if we should be concerned and what the wider implications for the crypto economy are. The first big announcement comes from GMO Internet. Now, GMO, if you remember, is a giant Japanese company that last year, right around the height of Bitcoin mania, decided that they were going to get into the Bitcoin mining game. So they were not only mining Bitcoin themselves, but they were also offering cloud mining contracts and selling hardware. Hard time to launch such products. Now, when they first announced, everybody's very excited. I was very excited. They were supposed to be the Bitmain killer. Finally, a giant corporation that had enough money and clout and funding to be able to take on Bitmain head on. Unfortunately, then the bear market happened. We had far too many people trying to mine Bitcoin. It became very unprofitable very quickly for a lot of smaller mining companies and anybody who couldn't remain incredibly competitive in terms of getting super, super cheap energy or actually owning the means of production of that energy. GMO, unfortunately, suffered what they're citing as extraordinary losses, particularly due to their Bitcoin mining operations in quarter four of this year. Extraordinary, by the way, over $300 million in losses. Now, in quarter three, they had made about $23 million on their Bitcoin mining operations, but now they have officially announced that they will not be selling any more Bitcoin mining hardware. You know, whoever came up with this idea has definitely got fired, right? I mean, wow, $300 million, that's a lot of money to lose. Now, even though they have stopped their Bitcoin mining hardware sales, they're still mining Bitcoin with the machines that they have. But even then, they have announced that they're looking for a region where they can get cheaper power, cleaner energy, etc., etc. So even we see them moving their own operations out of Japan. They weren't able to remain cost competitive enough. And hey, it's a free market when it comes down to Bitcoin mining and trying to find the cheapest energy. So if you can't compete, you can't compete. And it seems that GMO was unable to compete. Now that moves us on to Bitmain. Bitmain has been having a very hard time this year as well. When it comes to their recent announcement that they might be cutting 50, and some estimates have even put up to 80% of their staff. That is devastating. Absolutely devastating. And they have suffered a lot of the same problems that all the other mining companies have suffered. They launched a new generation of miners, and you know it takes a lot of time and energy to research and to develop these new products, to make these new chips. Their new miner comes out, not a lot of people are buying, right? Price of Bitcoin's going down. It's harder to make a profit mining Bitcoin unless you have access, again, to super, super cheap energy or own the means of production for that energy, which is, of course, a capital cost once again. But if you are these Bitcoin miners, it's been a really tough time. And obviously, Bitmain runs a giant amount of the actual Bitcoin mining, and they have maintained that in terms of being able to keep the miners running and keep some kind of profitability running, and they have been expanding their operations around the world. They've opened up some big new facilities in Washington State and in Texas, but they did close down their Israeli office. So we see that they are definitely struggling. And part of what I think has hurt Bitmain, unsurprisingly, is the Bitcoin Cash war, because they would have not only had to spend a bunch of money to fight that war, certainly not as much as they've lost, but Bitcoin Cash, the guys over at Bitmain have 1 million of them. 1 million Bitcoin Cash. And sure, they got their Satoshi visions. Why not? But that is a massive problem for them because the price of Bitcoin Cash since the start of the year has crashed monumentally. They also control a huge amount of Litecoin too. And again, they've been holding on to those assets as the price has gone down. And so now they can't fund their staff anymore. Now they can't fund their development. They probably can't fund their investment arm anymore. Very, very troubling news for Bitmain. And now look, I have long said it would be great to see more competition coming in to take some of the market share away from Bitmain, because it's not healthy for the ecosystem to have such a huge percentage of the mining power and the hardware production power with one company. But at the same time, I don't really want to see Bitmain go bankrupt. That's not good for the crypto economy either. So I hope that they can recover from this, even though they're obviously doing some very draconian cuts when it comes to how they're running their business. But Bitmain's still the top dog, but there's a lot of worries going on around Bitmain right now. Their IPO, there's been some rumors that it may not be able to be listed in Hong Kong, and that a lot of investors have, pulled out, said that we're not really interested anymore, especially looking at the financials of Bitmain and how much money they've lost mining cryptos, how much money they've lost due to the whole Bitcoin Cash debacle. Very tough times for Bitmain indeed. Now, the interesting thing, no one's really talking about Bitfury right now, and no one's really talking about Canaan right now. I know we covered a story recently that Canaan might be having an IPO in Hong Kong as well. Bitfury, they're usually just kind of keeping under the radar, developing their stuff, mining Bitcoin. So even if GMO disappears, and even if Bitmain were to disappear, we would still be fine. There would still be companies making Bitcoin mining hardware. That's not going to disappear overnight, guys, without a doubt. The overall effect of a giant company like Bitmain sinking would be quite dramatic in the short term. Long term, everybody forget about it. Wouldn't really matter very much to anyone except for, Jihan Wu and Roger Ver, of course. But I definitely would like to see more competition. So it's unfortunate that we're losing GMO internet, but this is the reality of the markets. You can't compete, then you're done, son. Thanks for playing. Now, in terms of the long-term impact of any of these news stories, people say, oh yeah, you see, all these Bitcoin miners, they're shutting down the machines, it's gonna be the end of the Bitcoin network, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very far from it. There is still a massive amount of hash power on the Bitcoin network. And even though we've had some pretty substantial decreases in the network hash rate and in the difficulty, this is a pretty normal market reaction. People who can't compete will turn off their machines. People who can still mine Bitcoin profitably will continue mining Bitcoin. Or maybe they'll mine at a slight loss for some extended period of time. But we still see a very, very strong hash rate. When we compare it to where we were a year ago in terms of hash rate and network difficulty, we're still way above that. So Bitcoin continues to be a very secure network. And even though GMO went down, we will see new competitors come in. Don't forget that Samsung is also working on Bitcoin mining hardware. So definitely the game is far from being over here, and I would not be surprised to see Samsung delaying that for some extended period of time. But they're working on it, and there'll be more competitors in the future. So even though we lost GMO, Bitmain's struggling financially. Bitcoin mining, totally cool. We're doing okay. Anyway, just my 2 Satoshis. I would love to know your thoughts on the current state of Bitcoin mining down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and watch the video. You guys are super awesome. If you enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up on it. If you are new around here, subscribe to the channel. If you want to know when I put out a new video, hit the notification bell. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.